Hello, my name is Annie Kongshag. I am a second grade teacher in the Elk Mound Area School District, and today I would like to talk to you about my pursuit of best practices as an educator. So my experiences began very early when I was younger with playing school, so I'll tell you about that, and then I want to tell you about initiating changes as a new teacher and how I discovered my passion for best practices over time. And as I discovered this passion for best practices, wanting to help all of the students in my classroom, it really inspired me to pursue my administrative degree. And I wanted to continue best practices from an administrative perspective this past year. And through these experiences with best practices, I've really learned a lot about communication and collaboration and how that fits in with best practice. So, as I said before, I started off early. This is a picture of me when I was in second grade playing school with my little sister, and it was something that I loved to do, but my sister didn't really like it very much because we did a lot of worksheets, we did a lot of reading out of old Basils that my school had thrown away and I had brought home with me to play school with. So I really learned at that time that I had to be more engaging as a teacher or my sister wasn't going to want to play. I still decided that I should be a teacher, even though I wasn't able to engage her, but I realized that I needed best practices to help me. In high school, I became a mentor through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I grew up in Racine, which is a diverse community, and my little sister lived in part of town that had a number of drug-related issues, and it was a tough place where she was growing up. So every week I'd pick her up and we would get together, we would do fun things. I would take her to McDonald's and we would play, and we would do homework together a lot of the time. So I'd help her with math facts and reading. And those experiences really solidified for me that yes, I wanted to be a teacher, but the kind of teacher that I wanted to be. I really felt like our education system had an opportunity to help kids like Kimmy to break the cycle of poverty, and so it really convinced me that I needed to become a teacher. I started at UW-Madison, and where I earned my degree, and I felt like my pre-service teaching experiences really gave me information about best practices, and I really felt convicted that when I started in my very first classroom, I wanted to implement those best practices that I learned. So I was really passionate about that. When I started teaching, I realized that I was somebody who always wanted to learn the new things that were going on, learn about these best practices, and I kind of realized a cycle that was happening for me because I would learn about a best practice, I would want to try it out in my classroom, and then eventually this led me to want to implement it in my whole school, so it would impact more than just the students in my room. It would impact all the students for the betterment of our school. So I realized throughout my 10-year career that this has happened a number of times where I've learned about a best practice, I've then implemented it in my own classroom, and I've had other teachers come along with me to implement it in their classrooms as well, and then it's eventually led to some school-wide change. So that's what I'm going to tell you about today, is this cycle of change. The first change that I helped implement was guided reading. So for my own personal learning, when I was a student at UW-Madison, this was our textbook, guided reading, and I realized that this was a really good way to differentiate reading instruction. The way that many of us were taught was everybody was reading the same text, and I realized that guided reading or any program that would differentiate for students would really meet more needs. It would make sure that those students who were reading higher level text could have a higher level text to engage with. Those students who were not reading where they needed to be could be supported at a text at their own level. And so I was really passionate that we needed to have something that could differentiate reading instruction in our classrooms. So this personal learning led me to implement a change in my own room. When I first came to Elk Mound, we were using a Basel. And although it provided a good core instruction, it didn't provide a way to differentiate. So what I did was I searched around my school, thought, what can I use for resources? I went to Scholastic and I thought, I'm going to order as many multiple copies of books that I can so I can try to implement guided reading. And I dug around my school and I found in a closet there were some old boxes that said guided reading, and I thought, oh. So, with my principal's support, I was able to begin using some of those materials, and I was able to convince my grade level team that this would be a good way for us to really meet all of our readers' needs. Over time, our grade level was able to attend some in-services, and I was able to lead in-services for our staff, so that way our whole staff could begin implementing guided reading. So we did a video series I led an in-service where I modeled for staff what a guided reading lesson would look like in primary grades, what a guided reading lesson would look like in older grades, so that way staff would really understand what this should look like and how we could more effectively meet all of our students' needs in the classroom. Over time, we were able to, over many years, purchase more and more books for our book room, so that way we could have the resources that we needed to differentiate instruction. So it's not something that just happened overnight, but we were able to make a change to meet all of our students' needs in the reading classroom. Another change that I implemented, I learned about myself, I implemented and then helped to initiate change in our whole school was the best practice of math problem solving. I was at UW-Madison fortunate enough to hear lectures and work under Thomas Carpenter, who is the author of Cognitively Guided Instruction, Children's Mathematics. And this approach to problem solving instruction looked at what strategies do students naturally bring to problem solving and how can we use those strategies to help students and build their understanding of mathematics. And so through those experiences in my pre-service teaching, I understood how the problem types worked and what I needed to do to help students to master those. Then I also attended in 2013 a conference at the Wisconsin Statewide Mathematics Institute, and it was a week-long, 40-hour intensive training all around the Common Core standards. And I realized that the Common Core standards have a problem-solving component built off of the problem types developed by Tom Carpenter. So it reinforced my desire to improve the problem-solving instruction at our school. So in my own classroom, when I was earning my first master's degree, my focus, my action research project, I collaborated with 2 other teachers, and all 3 of us implemented daily problem-solving instruction in our classrooms. And through that experience, I was able to measure student growth and see the outcomes and see how students improved in their ability to solve problems. So from that point on, I made sure that problem solving was an important part of my classroom. It wasn't something, though, that I had convinced our whole school was important yet. But then, after I attended that training, that week-long intensive training in 2013, I felt convicted that this is part of our new standards. We really need to be doing this in each and every classroom in our building. So with that first master's program that I talked about, when I had shared with my staff the results and what the students had learned, I had presented to the staff about it. I had staff experience what problem solving was like. But at that point, there weren't a lot of other staff members who jumped on board. And I think it was because it was a new thing, and we were just kind of introducing it to staff. And then over time, we were able to kind of convince, my whole grade level started to do it. And then another grade level and a colleague that I worked with on the project, their grade level did it. And then after 2012-13, when we attended this training, a staff member and I decided to, again, implement the problem solving as an in-service. But this time, our principal asked everybody to try it out. And that was a little encouragement that everybody needed. And once everybody tried it, they felt like it was an important and valuable thing that their students were doing each day to have this daily problem solving. And then this past school year, we initiated problem solving assessments so that we could really measure for our whole school how are students progressing on these problem types and how is this best practice really impacting our math instruction. So it was a good opportunity for us to kind of see how we could use assessments to guide our instruction. So this implementing the best practice of math problem solving was something that I collaborated with others, and with the help of my administration, we were able to implement for our whole school-wide to improve it. The third aspect of best practice that I have learned about myself, implemented in my own classroom, and then helped to change in our school was writing workshop. So my own learning for writing workshop started as a new teacher. I knew I wanted to have a writing workshop. I knew I wanted to have students have choice in their writing, what they wanted to write about. But for me, it was difficult because I wasn't sure what the content of my mini lessons should be. What did I really need to teach students about writing? And so I found a resource when I was doing the long-term substitute experience that they were using called Lucy Calkins, and it was the Units of Study was the original series that she had written. And it gave specific content ideas for what mini lessons you could teach students to help students understand the process of writing. Whereas the traditional Basel gives you an assignment to assign students. They're going to write a list today. The students will write a letter today. This program gave teachers the opportunity to know, how do I actually teach students to write, and how do I engage them with that, and how do I offer them that workshop model where I can confer and meet with them to really improve each student's writing. So as I learned about that, I felt it was important to implement the writing workshop in my own classroom using the Lucy Calkins materials that would specifically give me ideas for how to teach the content and the process of writing. So I tried out Writer's Workshop. I convinced my grade level team and another grade level team at my school, so 2 grade levels were piloting it. Then I was lucky enough to meet Lucy Calkins this past year, so that was really exciting for me because it confirmed, when I listened to her speak at the Wisconsin Reading Convention, it really confirmed for me what I was doing in my classroom, that these were effective changes, and they were things that met the Common Core standards, so that was exciting as well. So in our whole school, we decided to adopt the Lucy Calkins curriculum as well. When she came out with a new Common Core edition, I felt like it would be a great opportunity for me to lead in-service again to help teachers with this new best practice and how we could best meet students' needs. So I led Writer's Workshop after school in-services that teachers could attend to learn how to implement this new resource. And we had one session that was focused on supporting the English language learners at our school, other ones on conferring and how teachers could do that process, meeting with small groups. And through those meetings and through discussions with grade levels, we were able to implement this new resource that really is a best practice in how to teach writing. So as I implemented these 3 kind of major changes in our school, I realized that maybe, upon some reflection, I needed to complete a portfolio for our school's new compensation system. And as I completed that portfolio and I talked about these, things that I learned about and I implemented and I helped change in our school, along with the collaboration of my administration and other teachers, I thought maybe this is something that would be a good thing for me to pursue as my administrative degree, so I could do more of that. So I really wanted something that would allow me the opportunity to have a leadership role in implementing these sort of changes. So that's when I joined the learning community through Silver Lake College, and I decided to pursue my Director of Instruction license, my Principal license, and my Reading 316. So as part of that program, we read the book by Tom Rath called The Strength Finder, and it was interesting because my #1 strength was a learner, and I probably should not have been surprised by that, but I was, and it made me really reflect on, why am I implementing all these different things in my room? Well, when I learn about something and I feel like it's best for students, it's going to help me be a better teacher, then I feel the need to implement it, and I feel the need for our school to implement it as well so we can meet all students' needs. So as an administrator now, when I was working in my practicum, I was able to take on more of a leadership role. So I decided to implement 8 after-school professional development opportunities for teachers. So that gave me the opportunity to learn more about the standards and how our teaching really needs to change based on these standards. So I offered teachers 3 Writer's Workshop in-services, 3 in-services on math instruction and problem solving, and 3 on Common Core reading. And I was able to incorporate technology as well, so teachers would be engaged and have ideas that they could use the next day after attending the in-services and the professional development. I also felt it was a way to share the best practices that aligned with Common Core standards to really help teachers meet all students' needs in their classrooms. Another part of my work initiating best practice change was through a peer observation program. Through the Silver Lake College learning community, I was required to ask teachers to come in to observe me. And it gave me the idea that if they're coming in to see my best practices, it would be a great opportunity for teachers to observe each other and see each other's best practices in our own school, because we have so many great things going on. So I created a peer observation program where teachers were able to go into each other's rooms and observe and write down notes about what best practices they saw, what things they wanted to implement in their own classrooms after seeing the observations. And then we got together as a whole staff and we used the Charlotte Danielson framework that's part of the educator effectiveness system, so teachers could see that they didn't need to be overwhelmed by this, that many of the teachers were already doing many of the aspects of Charlotte Danielson's rubric. I was also able to use Google Docs, so teachers wouldn't have so much paperwork. They could just, use technology to help them and make it run more smoothly. So I realized as I implemented these changes that there were some important things that needed to be in place. First of all, the changes needed to be based on best practice. Also, there needed to be collaboration. I collaborated with other teachers to get my grade level on board, or maybe it was a few grade levels within our school. I wasn't trying to make these changes by myself. Another thing that was important was that these teacher leaders who were coming along the journey with me were all on the same page so we could communicate with other staff, help other staff, and be leaders for others. Finally, I needed administrative support. My principal has been extremely supportive in helping me to make these changes, and I think that's important, that you don't just want to try to change things on your own. You need support from others. So through this experience with best practice and really thinking about the best teaching, it made me realize that I think teachers have to be lifelong learners. They have to be pursuing what's best for their students at all times. And I think it's really important to make sure that you as a teacher are always doing that. You're not just getting stuck in a rut and doing what you've always done, but really what's going to be best for your students. So my passion, this passion that I have to be a lifelong learner, has led me to make these changes in my classroom. It's led me to want to pursue my administrative degree and ultimately to pursue a career in administration where I can help make implementing best practices at another school district the most important thing and the norm at that district. So I just want to kind of end with a quote. This quote is from Dennis Waitley, and it says, "All the top achievers I know are lifelong learners looking for new skills, insights, and ideas. If they're not learning, they're not growing, and they're not moving towards excellence."